Diabetes and diet go together like peas and carrots. Diabetes is a chronic disorder of the way our body digests food for energy. The food we eat is broken down into a form of sugar called glucose, which is our primary source of fuel. A hormone called insulin moves the glucose from our bloodstream into our cells. Diabetics either have inadequate insulin production or their cells don't respond to the insulin they have. The result is glucose left unused in the bloodstream, accumulating and causing damage. So maybe diabetes and diet isn't like any food pairing at all, because having diabetes is irrevocably linked to diet. And, well, you can always eat peas on their own.
As much as we can use medication, as much as we can use all different kinds of pills and insulin if we have to, and everything else, diet is the number one thing. And it's, to my way of thinking, it's why diabetes is such a difficult disease process. For most other diseases, you hand somebody a pill. If it's hypertension, you hand them a pill. If it's asthma, you give them an inhaler or something like that. But when it's a diabetic, they're exposed to food all the time. So it becomes just so hard to treat that. And that's why it's not just an easy thing to come in, give you, okay, that's it. You have to have a team approach. There's no other way.
Different foods have different effects on your body and your glucose levels. Healthy carbohydrates, like those from fruits and whole grains, fiber-rich foods, and good monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats will help control your blood sugar and cholesterol levels.
Dietary regimen needs to have a certain amount of calories. If you're trying to lose weight, you're going to have less calories. If you want to maintain the weight, you're going to have a little bit more. And then you want to split those calories up appropriately. You want to split it up into carbohydrates, which is the main form of calories, and that usually makes up about 50 to 55% of the diet. Proteins, which is another good source of bodybuilding materials, but also has some calories, and fats. And the fats are the things that you really want to limit as much as possible, because an ounce of carbohydrate or an ounce of protein compared to an ounce of fat has about 2.25 times more calories for the same weight. And that's why it's very important to really control that kind of an aspect of it.
Sometimes the trickiest part of the new diet is carbohydrates, because they break down directly into glucose. They have the greatest impact on blood sugar levels. You can and should have carbohydrates, but you have to choose the best one.
If you go out there and have a chocolate donut for breakfast, like one of my patients said they have this morning, that's not the kind of carbohydrate you want. You know, if you want to have a couple of pieces of toast and, let's say, bacon and eggs or something like that, that's okay, provided the quantity is there and you have the proper amount. You just can't go out and say, all right, I'll have a bagel and put a ton of cream cheese on it or something like that and fill my plate up with everything. You've got to limit the amounts.
Don't forget that beverages have an effect on blood glucose too. In fact, drinking just 1 can of soda per day can increase the risk of developing type 2 diabetes by 22%.
Things that are empty calories are things that you don't want patients to have. So sugary sodas are out, obviously. Like I mentioned, a chocolate donut, instead of having a real meal, a decent meal, is the kind of thing you want to avoid. They have to be aware of that, and they have to be able to make those decisions. It's not easy. It's a difficult process.
When a patient is newly diagnosed, it can be overwhelming to consider all the food options and all the repercussions of each one of those options, not to mention figuring out insulin too. That's why new patients are often referred to a nutritionist who can help create the perfect plan.
A diabetic doesn't have to feel that he's not able to eat everything. He just has to be able to eat within reason. And that's really what it boils down to. And that's what a nutritionist does. They'll go through the pattern of eating for an individual. We would love people to eat 3 meals a day and maybe take a snack at some point. So it's the kind of thing where I truly feel that if I see a diabetic for the first time, you really have to have them sit down with a nutritionist and get nutritional counseling into what they can eat, what they can't eat, how much of everything they can eat, so that they get the idea of where it's going. I mean, I can hand out papers and slips and things to people, but unless you're really sitting down and talking to somebody, it just doesn't work. And that's really got to be the mainstay of your treatment.
Eating the foods that properly fuel the body will help diabetics control blood sugars, and if you aren't a diabetic, eating the good foods and being active might prevent ever from becoming one. I'm Dr. Mike Rosen, and you're watching the eHealth Network. Stay healthy.